Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News and welcome to the Stienberg Review. And today we have a wonderful guest here with me who has been staying here in Singapore for almost 2 decades. And he's a successful Chief Executive Officer here, based here in Singapore. And also he's an art collector, enthusiast. And he's going to share with us his success and lessons learned and what it takes to be a great art collector and sorts. Mr. Bruno Waters, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
And I know that you have been, based here in Singapore for almost 2 decades. Tell us, what is your take on Asia? Why do you choose to base yourself here in Singapore to find your success?
Well, actually, when I came in Asia 20 years ago, I was based in Hong Kong because then the whole focus was China. And it's only 7 years after that I moved to Singapore in 2002 because we acquired a business that was here, so we had a structure. We moved into the Singapore structure. Eventually we found out that with time India materialized, Indonesia is about to materialize, and so Singapore is more central than Hong Kong. So Hong Kong was your China story. Now Singapore is your broader Asia story, your India, Indonesia, and China opportunity.
Well, and these opportunities, as I heard, your company deals with mining activities.
Correct.
And could you tell us some of the future outlook in the mining industry and what sort of prospect is there for Asia?
Look, you've got the demographics. In between the various Asian countries, you have about 3 billion people, so that is substantial. These are young countries. We are in the mining of construction materials, and so the amount of construction, whether it's infrastructure or building, that is going to happen is just enormous. Then you have the enormous phenomenon of urbanization in India and China, and as people move into urban environment, you have more windows, more toilets, more bathtubs, more sinks. So the ceramic industry has an enormous potential for growth in this part of the world, whereby in Europe it's completely, or America, it's completely matured. So that's probably the key driver for us being here in Asia.
Wow. Now, speaking about key drivers in Asia, someone spoke about Pakistan. What is your take on Pakistan?
We've started to look at Pakistan. Pakistan has got some very interesting minerals. It has very little infrastructure for you to move the minerals in the country. There are some concerns in our group on security, and indeed when you go to Pakistan it's visibly an issue, but if you're in our business you move in very early. We look at Pakistan, we look at North Korea, and so we don't really have a choice. We are long-term investors, and so we've started this year. In 2013 we will continue. I imagine 2015 we will probably start investing in Pakistan.
Amazing. Now, as a former expatriate, and now you are very much localized here in Southeast Asia. Many of the expats and also the young people, who are in their universities, they like to know what does it take and the kind of processes to be a great CEO.
But before you're a CEO, you need to make a career. I wasn't CEO overnight, so I always say to young people, if you come here, do not come as an expat in transit for 2-3 years. Come, learn the language, learn the culture, learn the way the business is done, stay here for the long term, and then you will have a chance to get the kind of background and know-how that company needs for you to become a CEO of their business in Asia. Otherwise, you're just the next little expat kid or the next fresh university grad. I think it is important today that if you want to become a CEO, you must be traveled. You must have a global perspective on issues. The world has integrated, and so you cannot just come out of a university in Singapore, have not traveled, not understand China, America, Europe, and become the CEO of a sizable company. It's not possible. So focus on the long term, make sure you move around the region, and that should probably set you on the way to at least becoming a top executive, if not the CEO of a corporation.
And so what kind of challenges do you foresee in the next 5 years?
Well, look, first the next 2 years, I think we've had a very difficult year this year. Nobody has visibility on where the Europe crisis is going. Now Brazil is starting to tank. China could be a bubble. So there is so much uncertainty that there's probably a 24 months time frame, which is a structural time frame, in which major changes and shifts will happen before we have visibility on where we are going. So prudence is probably the key word for 2013 and 2014, and hopefully we will see the growth coming back in 2015, which is what we are used to. In the 18 years that I've been working on the ground in Asia, we've only known good times, growth times, and so for the first year, this year, we've had a flat, difficult year.
Now, what does it take to be a great CEO? What sort of qualities do you see that you have come this far?
Wow. Look, I think you need to have leadership capability. I think you need to have a capacity to take risk. If you have a risk aversion, you should not be at the top of the pyramid. You need to be genuine about your people. You need to be committed to the people you recruit in terms of their development. And if you have these three qualities, you probably have the core of what it takes to be a good CEO.
Wow. Now, we all know that you're a great art enthusiast, like the example that we have in the background. It's an amazing art piece that you have. Why do you choose to be an art collector?
Well, I grew up in an artistic family. My father's an artist. One of my sisters did the Belgian Royal Academy, so I grew up in that environment. Unfortunately, I can't draw a line, so I went on the collecting side of art. I don't know. I think eventually you need a passion in life other than your working passion, and probably artists give corporate people like me the creative side, the other side that we don't have or that we don't see every day in our work lives. So it sort of brings in balance. It adds up to a lack that you have on that side. I think that's where my liking of art is not only art. Every artist, every piece of art that I have, I know the artist, I know the story of the work, so I don't collect if I don't know the artist, because I need the relation with the artist as much as I need the relation with his work.
Oh wow, so you only buy art unless you met the artist?
Yes,
themselves.
so I'm 100% contemporary. I only buy from living artists, and I've only met, I've only got pieces of artists I have met. I don't own a single piece of an artist I have not met.
Wow. Now, how many artists have you met so far in your lifetime?
Hundreds. I mean, I bought my first painting in Zimbabwe in 1987
Wow.
from a white Zimbabwean lady. So if you go all the way back then, hundreds and hundreds of artists. Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't mean I collect hundreds of artists, but I've met hundreds of artists. Yes.
Oh wow. Now, what will be the one artist that impressed you the most so far?
They're different. There's one Belgian artist called Roger Somville, which was my first major painting in my collection. So emotionally, I'm very attached to Somville. But in Asia, the two artists that I really like are here. One behind you, one in front of you. So there's Filippo Sciascia, who's an Italian artist. He's been 20 years in Bali. He's based in Bali. And Estedi, which is in front of you, and he's a Yogyakarta-based artist, which I think is probably the artist with the highest level of courage in Indonesia. So these are my two favorites.
Now, speaking about favorites, do you have any favorite artist that has deep-rooted emotionally when they pass on? I mean, I'm sure you have met many artists since '87, as you said. Was there any one of them that died and then you came to know about it and you felt very emotionally, deprived?
Not yet. Actually, I only have one artist, which is Francis Claraut in South Africa. He's from the Belgium Expressionist School. He was a priest. He was one of my early collected artists, and he passed away as a very old man at 93 years old, a few years ago. But he was far from me. If I lost one of the younger artists, including the two that are here with us today, then I think it would impact me, because these have become very close friends beyond being artists. But I've not, touch wood, I haven't been exposed to that yet.
Now, is art an investment or more like a hobby for you? Do you see it? Well, how do you see it?
Art's a passion. Look, art is a passion. You don't know when you buy a piece of art that you really like, you really don't know if the artist is going to become a major artist. It's very buying. If you have a passion for art, it is virtually impossible to sell. So it cannot be an investment. It can be an investment on paper. You can look at it and satisfy yourself that this painting's value has gone up so many times since you bought it. But you cannot sell it, because if you sell it, there is no other one. It's not like a book and then you go and buy another copy. If this painting behind us of Filippo is gone, there is no other painting. So you have to let go of something to which you're emotionally very attached. So so far I haven't gone down the route of rendering my investments, if they were investment liquids.
So are you saying that you are not in favor of the idea of treating art as an investment in the market, or rather as a passion?
Well, no, that's me. I'm, as a collector, I'm passionate about it. I don't buy art for the sake of investment. Now, art is a very good investment. It's a risky investment, but it's a very good investment. There are people that I know that buy into art funds, and they don't even see the art that they invest in. So these are investors. They are not art collectors. I try to dissociate. It's like the people who buy wine but never drink the wine. If I buy a bottle of wine and I think it's a very good wine, I want to drink it. I don't want to resell it to somebody else. So it is so fundamentally different that a collector looks at at art not as an investment, not as a market. If he does, and he's willing to let go, then he's not a real collector.
Oh. Now, as a great collector of art, is there any one piece of art that you regret buying?
Yes, and you don't regret buying art for the piece you bought, but you regret buying art when the artist suddenly, takes the wrong turn, is not serious anymore. So one of the key criteria in contemporary art is to meet the artist and make a judgment that he's there for the long time, that he's a real artist, that he will continue to challenge himself and evolve. Sometimes you have artists that do that for a while, then they find something that works well, and they switch from art to production. In mainland China, you have a lot of this. Artists that have found something that sells, and then they will do the next 50 works look alike because they know it sells. And so if you're a collector and an artist does that to you, then you get disappointed, and you regret having bought not the art, but having bought the artist.
Oh, so you wouldn't recommend anyone to buy any art from China?
No, they have amazing artists. China has fantastic artists. They are out of my financial league, but they are fantastic artists. But they have so many of them in China. When you go to Chichopa, 798 district, just around it, say 20 kilometers around it, there's 1,500 artist studios. Imagine if each one of these artists does 10 pieces per year, which they probably do at least, it's 15,000 artwork. So the market in China is wide, but inside they have very, very good artists. Very, very good artists.
Wow, amazing. So is there any Chinese pieces that you've already bought so far in China?
Yes, one. Wrong buy. When I arrived in China in '94, I didn't understand the China market, so I bought one, the wrong one. It's a beautiful piece, but it's from a totally unknown artist, and so I completely missed the China opportunity. When I lived in Hong Kong, I had the opportunity to spend time in China, but I didn't. I was too busy building this company for its owners. So I missed that opportunity completely, unfortunately, because some of the artists have really evolved fantastically.
Wow. Now, what is art to you as a collector?
An emotion, an ongoing emotion. A good piece of work is a work you will look at, and every day you will look at it, you will like it more. And so the emotional relation you have with this painting there gets deeper and deeper and more intense every day that you look at it. And this can go on for years. This painting is a 10-year-old painting.
Wow.
I still look at it every day.
Wow, it's like wine. Huh?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Amazing.
And so I think that's what it is. It's a strong emotion.
So you will never, ever in your life going to sell any of your pieces.
I cannot say ever in the future, but the pieces that are around me, man, no way. I've had this one. I've had so many offers to buy this painting. You know, the Christie's, the Sotheby's, the masterpieces, the Boudoir. They tell you, why don't you sell this? No way, no way. If it's gone, it's gone. It's impossible.
A piece of history disappeared.
It's a part of you. You bought this at a certain moment, at a certain point in time of the life of the artist. You know why it's there. You cannot sell it.
So if you to touch wood again, if you were to die today, you know, and if God would allow you to bring some pieces, at least 5 pieces of art with you to heaven, which would be the 5 pieces of art?
Wow. They for sure would include the first Sunville I bought, the one that is so dear to me, because it took me more than 10 years to be able to buy it financially, but yet I bought it. For sure, I would take my favorite works from STD and from Filippo with me, and then let's see at that point in time what else. But I'll share a little story with you. Back in 1994, I was still in Europe, and I got myself into a financial problem with one of my first companies, and eventually I sold part of my Klaarhout collection. So I had bought quite a bit of this older painter that died. And I was able to bail out, clear, and restart because I had that collection. And so I went and, again, with a very heavy heart, I sold part of the collection, or actually most of it, except a few pieces that I really liked. And that raised enough cash for me to take a fresh start. So it's been helpful to me also in the past, economically.
But you're going to buy it back, I suppose.
If I get a chance. Collectors don't sell. So if you sold to a real collector, the chance of buying back is 0.
Amazing. Now, what advice would you give for first-time collectors? In art. What must they do to understand what is art, and when they get into collecting art, especially in countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, where space is a constraint.
Yeah, it's not only here. In New York, they say the galleries will tell you, look, if it doesn't fit in the lift, we can't sell it. So it's not specific to Singapore or to Hong Kong. And this is a problem with the Indonesian artists. They like to do very big works because in Indonesia people have big houses, and you bring it here, you can't fit in the lift to bring it up to your apartment. So look, the only criteria is you must love what you buy because you're going to be looking at it every day. So you must really genuinely love the piece you buy. Then if you want to be on the safe side because you're making an investment or because you're spending a substantial amount of money, do your homework. Who's the artist? What is his track record? In the art world, the CV of an artist is super important. Has he been exhibited in museum? Has he been in the reputable auction houses? Who collects him? And so look at his CV, and if you like what you read and you still love the piece, buy it.
Wow.
It's that simple.
Now, speaking about the simplicity, what will be the most expensive art you have spent on so far?
I think
Is that something you...
No, I don't think I should disclose how much I spent.
Okay.
Let me put it differently, is that it represents much too large a portion of my investment portfolio if I was to say, look, it's an investment, which sometimes you have to tell your wife. It's a passion, so it's difficult, it's difficult to be reasonable with your passion. When you see a piece of art that you really love, not buying it is something that is extremely difficult.
A sin not to buy it.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know that if you don't, tomorrow it's gone, you'll never see it again.
Great. Well, now, Mr. Bruno Walters, thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice and for sharing with us about your passion of art and key to success of being a CEO here in Asia Pacific for all our viewers here who wants to find success in Asia. But before we go, what is the next perceived future in art? What do you see in Asia? Do you think that people in Asia are ready to appreciate art? Do you think Asians are mature enough and ready to to embrace? Because there's a lot of art galleries right now being set up in Singapore and elsewhere, that you and I have witnessed. What do you think about the art scene?
Look, I think that you have the market is ready, the people are ready. Overall, there is an opportunity. People, you really don't need much to collect. I think the success of the affordable art fair that you have here is symptomatic of that. So at the entry point for new collectors who can do an impulse purchase on a piece of art that they love, you can see that the people are there to do that. Then you have a gap, you have a zone in between, which is a middle range where art is something you like, but it's expensive, and you are not there yet, and you are not sure. I think in general, Asians are cautious investors, and so what will happen, in my opinion, in Asia is that people will actually buy very reputable art. In the past, everybody wanted to ride the amazing China and Indonesia train with all these paintings that were going up and up and up, like there was no end to it. But that's already burst. The bubble burst. Some of these artists have gone down substantially. And so because people have seen now that it can actually go down, I think they'll buy safer values. And that's why if you see, for example, at Gilman, some of the galleries carry world-class museum quality art for you to buy if you're willing to spend the money. But if you buy a Picasso today, what's your risk? Zero. You will keep it if you do an investment, right? You will keep it and you will be able to sell it one day or pass it on to your children. So I think you're going to have these two groups of, at the entry point, a lot of people, less people, and the less people, the bigger collectors, probably are going to build a collection largely based on very safe values, and then a few artists that they really like.
Oh yes, before we go, most collectors, new collectors, are wondering, did you usually keep these art pieces in the air-conditioned facility or room temperature? How do you preserve them?
Look, it depends what it's made with, right? So if it's acrylic, you're okay. If it's oil doesn't like humidity, fungus grows on it, so it depends how the painting is made. If it's a mixed media, you need to be careful. We have a very humid climate here, so most of the works will prefer air conditioning. But in Singapore, we now have very professional, very good storage facilities. I keep my entire collection with Heliotrans. The hygrometry is controlled, the airco is on all the time, it's safe. And so if you buy art that is really dear to you, it's worth spending a few $100s per month to properly store it rather than take the risk of it being damaged at home because you have crazy kids or because you don't switch on the airco and fungus starts growing on the oil painting. So you wouldn't store your wine in your garage without airco, so you wouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this with painting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bruno Waters, for joining us, and thank you for joining me here at the National Critics' Choice, the Stienberg Review with Mr. Bruno Waters here in Singapore. Have a good week ahead, and don't forget to buy more art and collect them.